Welcome to In the Lighthouse, your safe harbor from the storm, with your host, the Lighthouse Keeper, Daphne Collins.
Hello, and welcome to this special Christmas edition of In the Lighthouse, your safe harbor from the storm. This is Daphne Collins, your Lighthouse Keeper and host for our time together. I've been sitting here thinking back to my childhood and all the memorable Christmases spent with my rather large family. There are so many words that come to mind when remembering those cold, wintry nights in Ohio. Children have very vivid imaginations, and when nurtured, they grow to produce works of art, excellent storytelling, or musical arrangements that convey the depth of their creativity. Some nights were so cold that my sisters and I used to make up songs about the frost on the window panes at night. Nostalgic images come especially to mind during Christmas. They're brought on by what our senses pick up. These images can be many and varied depending on what sense has been stirred up. Our memories of people, places, and things are very real and personal. They shape the foundation of who we are and how we live in the world. When tragedy strikes and we're shaken from our moorings, it may take a miracle to restore us to those people, places, and things that bring us back to that place called home. This story is entitled A Place at the Table and provides us with a look into the picture-perfect snow globe of a family in a house that was built for that family. If we look closely, we'll see that their family picture is not as perfect as it seems from a distance. Perfection will only be achieved when Jesus returns. But for our story, we will look to the hope of this world, a babe, found swaddled and lying in a humble manger in the little town of Bethlehem. That very first Christmas, when the herald angels announced his birth to lowly shepherds abiding with their sheep, became the pivotal moment for exactly why the weary world rejoices. Will there be a place for this little child in our world? Will he find a place in your heart? Oh, come, let us adore him. Okay, let's get started. The Andrews house is a large clapboard farmhouse built by their ancestor during the mid-19th century in Ames, Iowa. The old house, which has been well maintained through the years, was built solid to withstand many storms blowing across the plains. Every detail in its design and construction was lovingly planned by its builder, Jeremiah Andrews, with his wife at the forefront of his mind. Isabel Andrews agreed to begin the journey westward by wagon from Ohio with her husband when he purchased 100 acres of rich farmland in Iowa. In 1852, the foundation of the large home was laid and construction began. Generations of the Andrews family have lived and flourished in the big house despite wars, famine, and storms. They survived all manner of conflict from without. Jeremiah and Isabel Andrews believed that God would provide for their health and welfare if they remained faithful to the God who created them. If the family were to stray from the faith and follow their own path, the protection of the family would begin to unravel. When they blessed and moved into their home, Jeremiah and Isabel had no reason to believe that their family would ever be broken by tragedy. But the home was fraught with conflict and separation, and silence soon followed. How will the spirit of Christmas mend what has been broken for many years? The faith that one child can place in the child born to save the world will be the miracle that brings home the prodigal. Forgiveness that soothes the pain of a broken heart, and hospitality to the weary traveler, because as it was during that first Christmas, there was no room at the inn.
Amelia Andrews sneezed a second time as she rifled through the mountain of boxes, filling every corner of the attic of her family home. It was time to bring down the boxes for decorating inside the large home for Christmas, and the very focused Amelia was not going to let a little dust get in her way. Okay, everything is over here in this corner, Angus. Let's carry these to the landing outside first, and then we could carry them down. Just be careful where you step. There are a couple of nails sticking up in the floorboards, so I'll ask Rick to hammer them back down before someone seriously hurts themselves. She spoke behind her to her nephew Angus, who was helping her carry the boxes from the attic. "I can hammer those down, Auntie," he replied. "It's easy. Rick said I'm getting a lot better with the hammer," he said proudly. "Well, maybe he could supervise you and make sure it's done properly. Remember, this house is very old and needs some good TLC so it can last another 100 years. Amelia answered as her eyes fell on a box labeled Family Photos and Albums, and she hesitated. It was sitting amongst a pile of old junk and broken furniture. "We really need to clean this attic. There's a lot of junk that needs sorting and stuff I need to send to charity." Her eyes fell across a large, colorful trunk, elaborately decorated with plastic jewels. The name Amanda was painted in script in large lettering on top. The chest once belonged to her identical twin sister when they were the same age as Angus is now, 10 years old. Amelia remembered how proud they were to have their own chests to store their treasures. Both girls kept their chests at the foot of their bed. Identical in everything but personality, the girls kept not only their treasures in a chest, but also each other's innermost secrets. "But now you're gone, and I have your children to care for. I'm sorry that I didn't do well with Alex. She retreated into herself more than I did. It's my fault, Mandy, but I'll make it up to you, I promise. I started decorating again last year, and we celebrated Christmas here in the house. I invited Alex, but she didn't come. It's been 3 years since she's been home, and we rarely hear from her. Only an occasional text. Mostly, she sends her messages through Angus, or she asks him how he's doing. I don't know what to do, sis. I'm trying to give Angus a feel for a true Andrews Christmas, like Mom and Dad always gave us. I really miss you, Mandy. If you could only." She heard the footsteps of her wiry nephew coming back into the attic room. "What was it you said, Aunt Mellie?" he asked. "Oh, nothing. I'm just talking to myself like an old lady with cats," she replied. "Okay, I think that's everything, Angus. Let's finish carrying those boxes downstairs and get started." Amelia groaned and stretched her back as she surveyed the nicely decorated tree and the all-familiar knickknacks around the room. She glanced at the stairwell and banister with the lighted hollyberry strewn garland wrapped around it. Everything looked as she wanted it. Rick and Angus were a tremendous help and put all the boxes back in the attic. Rick also turned the outside into a fairy wonderland with all the twinkling lights going down the tree-lined drive. Two of the farmhands helped him secure the lights on the house and around the front and back of the property. The ghosts of Christmases past were speaking to Amelia, a 39-year-old single entrepreneur who became a mother to her niece and nephew overnight at the death of her identical twin, Amanda, and her partner, Ben, their children's father. 10 years have passed since their deaths, and it's taken 9 of those years for Amelia to awaken from her mourning. When Amanda and Ben died, their oldest, Alexis, was 11 years old, and Angus was only 3 months old. Amanda and Ben accepted an assignment that would take them to the other side of the world and under the darkest depths of the Indian Ocean to fulfill their photojournalist dream. However, tragedy struck when the submarine the company used could not withstand the pressure from the depth of the ocean. The news of their passing came to Amelia the next day, which was 2 days before Christmas. She was expecting them to come home on Christmas Eve, following that final undersea mission. She was left to tell Alex about her parents. 10 years later, the pain of that loss keeps Alex away. As soon as she turned 18, Alex announced that she was going to leave Iowa and move to New York City. She wanted to go to NYU to study cinematic arts instead of Iowa State University, which was nearby. Alex contacted Amelia to let her know that she had found an apartment in Manhattan with 2 other young women who, like her, were working students. And she's been gone to pursue her dream of filmmaking. She's so much like you, Mandy, and Angus is a lot like me, but looks like Ben. He had the first Christmas of his life last year. He absolutely loved it and is especially excited this year. I think he's more excited this year because he knows what to expect, but still doesn't really know, Amelia said as she carefully arranged the hand-carved figurines of the nativity set in their places in the alcove. "Aunt Mellie, who are you talking to now?" asked Angus behind her. "Oh, you startled me." "Sorry, Angus, like I said, I'm talking to myself like an old lady with cats. I'm caught up with the ghosts of Christmas past." Angus looked around warily, as if looking to see if one of Aunt Mellie's ghosts was somewhere near him. She looked at him and grinned. "No, Angus, not actual ghosts. It's just a figure of speech." She stepped back to look at the nativity display before her, turned, and looked sideways at her nephew, her eyes twinkling. "Tell me what you know about the first Christmas." Alexis waved as Chloe yelled, "Merry Christmas!" over her shoulder as she tunelessly hummed God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen noisily down the long outer hall of their New York apartment. The thump-thump of Chloe's suitcase announced every step as the young woman pushed against the heavy security door to leave the building. Alex looked down from the window of the second-story apartment to the street as Chloe turned to look up and wave once again before climbing into the waiting Uber. The Uber driver looked up and waved at Alex as well before he got in at the driver's side of the car, a silly grin on his face. Alex grinned back. She stood there at the window, staring down at the street and noticing that others were hopping into taxis and waving goodbye to get away from the city to places unknown. A sudden feeling of sadness came over Alex as she backed away from the window and sucked in gulps of air. What? Alex gasped. "No, you're not going to freak out again this year. It's over. It's done. Do you hear, Alex?" She chided herself. "Oh, yes," she heard. The problem was the sadness wasn't listening. She walked back to the bedroom she shared with Chloe. This was the largest of the 2 bedrooms in the apartment, which had 3 roommates. Jillian had the single bedroom and paid a little extra toward the rent. Before she left the day before, Jillian urged Alex to consider going home for Christmas. She herself was heading to Toronto to be with her family. Jillian, the practical and sober-minded pre-law student, told Alex it was time for her to put aside old hurts to rest and begin new possibilities. The loss that kept her from her family also kept her in bondage from those new possibilities. Chloe agreed with Jillian, but she always made over-the-top suggestions that would make Alex laugh, and Jillian roll her eyes and sigh. Chloe and Alex were similar to one another. Both young women were fine arts students, Chloe for the theater and Alex for film studies. But now they were gone, and the apartment was quiet, save for the sound of the clock on the mantelpiece, ticking loudly toward the approaching noon hour. I want to go, but there are so many memories of great Christmases and laughing with Mom and Aunt Mellie. Ever since Mom died, Auntie has never wanted to decorate or celebrate Christmas. Angus has never known an Andrew's Christmas. Alex remembered her grandparents visiting every Christmas. They used to live in the house, but when the twins were older, Aunt Mellie took over the running of the business, while their parents chose to live in Florida for much of the year. Her mom traveled with her dad for most of the year, but made sure she was home every Christmas when her parents came so that the entire family could be together. Alex enjoyed decorating with her mom and Aunt Mellie, as well as all the baking to prepare gift boxes for their neighbors and people from church and the community. She missed the caroling with their church choir and community singers. The memories of Christmas in Iowa were coming from all directions to Alex. "You need to put old hurts to rest and begin new possibilities, sweetie," said the good angel on her shoulder, who looked a lot like Jillian. "Well, you could just grab a standby seat and join me in Henderson with my folks. They live right next to Las Vegas, and we could go out every night to a different casino. What do you say?" said the little devil on the other shoulder with Chloe's face and voice coming from the moving lips. This little devil was carrying a lightsaber instead of a pitchfork, which was so totally Chloe. Right. There's nothing that says peace on earth and goodwill to men like going to a different casino every night, Alex scoffed. "Okay then." She pulled out her phone to send a text to her aunt and little brother. She hesitated mid-message and deleted the text. "What if they tell me I'm no longer welcome?" she heard her voice say weakly. "New possibilities," said Jillian. "What do you say?" asked Chloe. 1 hour later, suitcase and backpack readied, Alex hopped in the back of an Uber to the airport. She was taking the last direct flight from LaGuardia to Des Moines International Airport. She never called Aunt Mellie or let Angus know that his sister was on her way to spend Christmas with him. They were going to learn how to begin new possibilities when prior hopes were dashed. Alex, the prodigal, was going home for Christmas. On the plane, Alex scrunched tighter in the middle seat of the crowded flight that left New York bound for Des Moines. She sat between 2 larger people, a man and a woman. The man had the good sense to nod off as soon as the plane left the ground, while the woman decided this was a great time to subject the trapped young woman sitting in the middle seat to serious, invasive interrogation. Caught off guard, Alex didn't see that one coming. "So, dear, are you traveling by yourself? Visiting your family? Where are you going in Iowa? Are you married? Do you have children yet? Oh, it looks like you're a student. What are you studying? What are your big plans after college?" Are you gonna live back home, or do you have plans to work in the big city? What do your parents think about your plans after school? Do they want you to stay home and marry the boy next door? Do you like Christmas? Yes. So tell me about your plans for Christmas, Alex answered the woman. While the woman talked without ceasing the whole of the flight, Alex allowed the memories of her time with her little brother Angus to come forward. These were the safest memories of just the two of them and their adventures together. Alex marveled at Angus's imaginative way of creating stories on the spot over their mundane activities. He could talk for hours, spinning a tale for his sister on their walks through the nearby woods that bordered their family property. Angus was only 7 when Alex told Aunt Mellie that she was going to go to school and live in New York. She was 18 and didn't want to remain in Iowa. Aunt Mellie carefully invested the money left for both kids from their parents, as well as the sizable annuity from their company to get them situated in life. They took great care to have their children financially secure in the event of their deaths. Amelia Andrews did not hesitate to ensure the children of her sister would want for anything. But she never anticipated that Alex would never want to come back. The plane finally landed in Des Moines, and Alex, who didn't hear a single thing the woman said, gathered her items and told her that she must hurry to get her suitcase and get picked up. She never heard the woman ask her what her name was as she deplaned and walked rapidly through the airport to retrieve her suitcase at baggage claim. She tried to remain inconspicuous if the woman should spot her at the baggage claim area, and when she saw her, Alex ducked out one of the exterior doors to find the taxi stand. While awaiting a taxi, Alex heard a male voice calling her name. "Who?" she said, turning around and immediately spotting a good family friend and someone she hadn't seen in a few years, Rick Graves. "Oh my goodness, Rick! Where did you come from?" she said, genuinely pleased to see a familiar face. "Of all the faces I would see at the airport, yours is one I never expected," he said to Alex, smiling back. "Are you here to visit for Christmas? Do they know you're here?" he asked. "No. This was a last-minute decision made only a few hours ago. They don't even know I'm coming, let alone that I'm here. I'm just waiting on a taxi to get driven to the house." "Well, as it turns out, I'm on my way back to Ames. I dropped off one of my neighbors who required assistance at her gate, and I saw you standing there. My truck is not far from here, and I'm happy to take you to your aunt's house. Gosh, wait till they see you. Oh, and Angus is going to be over the moon. He never stops talking about you." Rick's words were a balm to her anxious soul. He couldn't know how much it helped to calm her worries. She smiled as she followed him to his truck, which took up 2 parking spaces for its size. Rick was always partial to really big pickup trucks, she thought, as she climbed high into the front cabin. "I had to use a stepladder for Mrs. Hopkirk to get in and out of the truck. These things aren't built for the elderly," he said sheepishly. "I should have taken Mellie's car to bring her to the airport, but I didn't think about it until after we were closing her front door." Alex tried not to giggle as she thought about Rick helping the overly abundant Mrs. Hopkirk scale the truck. Rick noticed how Alex closed in on herself as soon as the truck exited Des Moines International Airport. "We should arrive around 7:30, I think," he said, breaking the quiet. "Oh, sounds fine," Alex answered. "You know, Angus has been helping me regularly at my workshop. He helps with the cleanup and making sure my tools are clean and ready each day, and he sweeps the shop floor 3 times a week. During the entire time he's with me, Angus talks." Alex laughed at that. "Yep, that's our shy Angus," she quipped. Once again, Alex retreated into silence. He glanced across the seat at her, noticing her body language. "It's going to be fine, Alex. You shouldn't worry." "But they don't even know I'm coming, Rick. Who comes home after nearly 4 years without so much as a by your leave and arrives on the family front door as if everything is just fine?" she asked. "Apparently, that's me, the prodigal who's left for the far-off country without a word of care for their loved ones," she answered, her hands rubbing up and down her thighs nervously. "Aunt Mellie stopped celebrating Christmas right after Mama died. She couldn't take it and wanted to block out all the memories because it was too raw and painful. Suppose my return knocks over any rebuilding of life she's made these years I've been gone." Rick didn't answer her. The truck turned up the long driveway of the property she hadn't seen since her 18th birthday. Alexis Andrews was home. She climbed from the truck, gazing around in awe. As he walked around to where she stood, Rick saw that her eyes were as large as saucers, and her mouth gaped open as she observed the well-lit homestead with the twinkling lights strung up all over the tree-lined drive. A familiar lawn decoration with 8 reindeer pulling a sleigh was displayed in its usual place at the slope of the front yard. While Alex was looking on in wonder at the twinkling wonderland, the front door opened and a gangly, dark-haired boy came running down the front steps. "I told you, Aunt Mellie," he shouted to the figure of the woman standing behind him. "She's here! I knew you would come, Alex. I missed you." Angus never doubted that Alex would return home. He knew that his sister never stopped thinking about their adventures together and the home where she grew up. Aunt Mellie told him that she was just like her mother. "She's a free spirit. You can't expect her to stay long in any one place. When it's time to go, she goes," his aunt explained. But here she was, standing outside in the crisp, cool night, staring at the lighted trees and the house. Angus was very excited about Christmas, especially this one. Last year, when he was 9, Aunt Mellie suddenly announced that they would begin celebrating Christmas again, and she started pulling out the boxes of decorations. She especially grabbed his attention when she started telling stories of their Christmases past, something that Angus longed to hear about but was afraid to ask. He tried so many times to get Alex to share her memories of their mother and father on their adventures in the woods, but Alex would quickly change the subject or give the quiet excuse, "Sorry, little brother, I'm not ready yet." Their silence and withdrawal made Angus feel like an outsider. For the longest time, he thought he was responsible for their deaths. But when he told Rick about his secret feelings, Rick quickly put an end to that thinking. The mind of a child is left to make conclusions about complex human issues without the benefit of a loving adult to explain things that could take them down unintended dark corridors. Rick saw this quickly happening in the boy and swooped in as a surrogate father to the fatherless boy. In fact, Rick slowly became the one that Angus turned to for new adventures and patient responses to his many questions about their family. When she decided to decorate the house again, Aunt Mellie also began to answer some of the many questions Angus had about their family and the holiday memories she had. But it was Rick who supplied all the juicy details to fill in the spots that completed the pictures in Angus's head. Rick grew up and played with the Andrews twins. They went through school together from elementary to high school graduation. Angus learned that Rick knew everything there was to know about Amanda and Amelia Andrews, as well as Ben Villiers, who moved to their community when they started middle school. One of his favorite things to do was to go to Rick's warehouse and workshop to learn new things and talk. Rick was a master cabinet builder, and his family was famous for their cabinetry and custom furniture. He was teaching Angus carpentry basics. Mostly, Angus was sweeping the floors of the shop, putting the tools back on their hooks, and cleaning the brushes. But he told Angus about his father and the stuff they used to do as teenagers. He told Angus about his maternal and paternal grandparents. Angus felt comfortable with Rick because he answered so many of his questions. It was then that Angus began to confide his secret things to Rick. He could see that Rick listened intently to what he was telling him and didn't laugh at Angus or say that he was just a kid for thinking the way he did. He really listened. Angus looked closely at the hand-carved nativity figures prominently displayed in the alcove near the front entrance of the house. When she stepped back to observe the old family nativity scene, Amelia looked and then turned to Angus. "Tell me what you know about the first Christmas." Angus was excited to tell her what he knew because he remembered how the story from the book of Luke was told to the kids in Sunday school. Plus, Angus remembered when Alex told him about the CHRIST in the word Christmas, which was all about Jesus and not Santa Claus. Amelia listened as he told her the story of Christmas from the imaginative mind of a 10-year-old. She smiled at his simplistic and straightforward approach. "That's very good, Angus. Would you mind telling this story again on Christmas Eve, when we have our cocoa before bed? Who knows? We may begin a new tradition of a storyteller in the Andrews house." Angus recalled how he felt when he first heard the story from Aunt Mellie on his first ever Christmas Eve. He and Rick looked on as she told the story of the birth of Jesus and the reason why we celebrate Christmas in the world. He was even more excited this time now that Alex had come home. Tomorrow night, she would hear him tell the story of Christmas, and she would feel welcomed by the presence of family. Rick helped Angus understand a little about how people deal with the loss of someone they love, and how they unknowingly shut out the ones they need the most. It was Alex who told him about their mother. "If you want to know what Mom looked like other than in pictures, all you have to do is look at Aunt Mellie. She looks exactly like her. It's scary," she told her wide-eyed brother. "Thing is, they're also very different in how they did stuff. For instance, Mom was impetuous and couldn't stay still for a minute. That's when Aunt Mellie and Grandma used to say. Aunt Mellie, on the other hand, is the practical one. She doesn't do anything without thinking for a long time about it," she said. When he was with Rick and spoke to him about his mother and aunt, he told Angus the same thing, but added, "I think Alex is very similar to your mother, whereas you are more like your Aunt Mellie. You see, Angus, both sisters were a matched pair and did everything together. They had the same voice and moved the same, but they were definitely different in the way they responded to things. Your mom made up her mind quickly and was stubborn. Your aunt was not quick to decide and chose to look at all sides before making a decision. She is stubborn also." "Since I'm like Aunt Mellie, does that mean I'm stubborn too?" he asked Rick. "No, I don't think so. You're still just a kid, so that streak doesn't appear to be evident in you. I think you're different from your aunt, Angus. You're not completely like the women in your family. I think you're more like your father in temper. He was easygoing and didn't get upset all that much over things." Angus smiled as he recalled Rick's words and wished his parents could be there to hear him tell the Christmas story tomorrow night. He looked at the carved figure of the swaddled baby lying in a rectangular box. "I know you will hear my story. Thanks for bringing Alex home to us."
Let's take a moment for this short break. When we return, we will continue with our special Christmas edition of A Place at the Table.
Welcome to Walk in His Way with Kinney DeHamel. Thank you for joining me. This is Kinney DeHamel. Today's encouraging Christmas message is entitled, The Greatest Gift. When I think of Christmas, I think of gifts, treasures I've received in the past, gifts I took a long time choosing to give others, and of course, the greatest gift of all, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He left his eternal throne in heaven and came to earth, incarnated a baby to the lineage of David according to the prophecies regarding his birth. And, according to the prophet Isaiah, he was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And, as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Because of man's wickedness and blindness, he who knew and showed only love would eventually suffer, die, and rise again, so that all who call upon his name to save them from their sin may walk in joy, peace, freedom, and love. What a treasure salvation is. During this season celebrating the birth of Jesus, I pray to receive the gift of Jesus' unfailing love, mercy, and grace to my family, friends, and neighbors. How about you? Would you like to receive the greatest gift? One that is unmerited and given only by God? Let us walk in His way. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for all the great gifts you have given us. This Christmas, help us to pay that gift forward by being your ambassadors for peace on earth and goodwill to all. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. You have been listening to Walk in His Way with Kinney DeHamel for Carry the Light Ministries.
Welcome back. We will now continue to the conclusion of our special Christmas story, A Place at the Table.
Rick couldn't believe his eyes. Alex actually came home as Angus told him 2 months earlier. He remembered how Angus looked him seriously in the eyes and begged him not to tell Amelia. It was to be a surprise, according to what his mother told Angus in the reoccurring dream he had been having these past months. It was the weirdest coincidence to run into Alex at the airport after dropping off his short and stout neighbor, Mrs. Hopkirk, who suddenly decided to visit her daughter and grandchildren for the holidays. At the right time, in the right place, there she was, standing and waiting for a ride. Rick had heard about these serendipitous occurrences before, but had never personally experienced one until now. Some call it serendipity, he thought, but I call it God's purpose. God is up to something. He had already attributed the word weird to the Andrews twins to explain their own special twinning phenomenon, known only to their closest family and friends as the straight A's. The sisters were identical in appearance, speech, and movement. Only those absolutely close to them could tell them apart. Their vocal quality was the same, whether they were speaking or singing, and both sang very well. They were complementary in their artistic abilities, but the thing that truly freaked him out was the way they could finish one another's sentences without fail. This was the stuff of scientific behavioral research, if you wanted to understand the mystery of the Andrews twins. The thing that caused a crack in the armor was the entrance of the handsome young rogue, Ben Villiers, in middle school. Rick became Ben's closest friend and ally. He saw Ben single-handedly break through the barrier of the straight A's and began diverting Amanda, the wild one, he secretly called her. The twins, always inseparable, never anticipated someone with the magnetism of Ben Villiers. All the girls in their class vied for his attention, but he was immediately drawn to the beautiful, raven-haired Andrews twin, who was a year younger than himself. Amanda Andrews was bossy, passionate, and impetuous. Those were the qualities that drew Ben like a moth to a flame. His carefree and impetuous nature attracted her. Both were daredevil dreamers, unafraid to try new things and explore new places. They loved their families, but their passions pulled them away to explore the next horizon. This left Amelia abandoned from that part of her sister that could not be controlled or managed. Equally beautiful and creative, Amelia's reserve and practical way of seeing things were qualities that attracted Rick. The problem became her stubborn reticence amid the tragedy of her sister's death. Rick saw how Amelia shouldered the responsibility of bringing up her sister's children following the deaths of their parents. She was already somewhat of a parent to Alex when Amanda was traveling around the world with Ben as a photojournalist. Rick was with her one evening when Amelia suddenly screamed Amanda's name. She experienced what she described as a ripping away of her close bond with her sister, and then a bone-chilling despair came over her. The next day, she received a call from their employer that Ben Villiers and Amanda Andrews had died in an accidental submarine implosion while working on an environmental documentary in the Indian Ocean. The couple had been engaged to marry for years and hadn't gotten around to making their union legal. Still unmarried, they left behind 2 children, Alexis, 11, and Angus, 3 months. Amelia became Alex and Angus's legal guardian. The company provided Ben's and Amanda's children a sizable annuity in their parents' names, along with a monthly stipend to Amelia for their upbringing to their 25th birthday. Amelia's close bond with her sister gradually transferred to her oldest friend, Rick, who remained by her side through their mourning period over the loss of a sister and a best friend. Rick was always there for Amelia and the kids, like that dependable uncle they were used to seeing. Their image of Rick in this role wasn't his desire, though. Rick, who had been hopelessly in love with Amelia Andrews since before high school, tried very hard to make her see him in a different light without making her feel uncomfortable. Ben would tease him and say, "Why don't you just tell her how you feel? You need to be a little more assertive with that one. Remember, she's always in her head and doesn't automatically see things like we do." As the years passed, Rick courted Amelia and was there for her as she gladly received his company and counsel. On a couple of occasions, they had discussions about best friends who had married, but still, they were both hesitant to share their feelings with one another. It was early morning of the next day, following Alex's unannounced return to her family home in Iowa. It was also Christmas Eve. Rick left them happily chattering away at the house after a late supper. He felt a lump in his throat from emotions swelling up within him. Like Amelia and Angus, he was thrilled to see Alex. She didn't even know she was verbalizing aloud her internal fear on the drive from the airport to the house. Lost in memory, she was telling him why she stayed away and that there was some kind of nostalgic pull drawing her home. It just came on me all of a sudden, and the next thing I know, I'm in Iowa, and here you are. Rick pulled out the tiny box in his pocket and opened it for the 1 millionth time. The brilliant round diamond solitaire caught the light in the room as tiny beams shot from the facets. For months, Angus had been telling him those dreams about his mother, and it happened as he said. He was even closer with the boy who came to Rick as a son would to his father. And although he called her Aunt Mellie, the boy had known and treated her like his mother, and she, to Angus, like a son. Okay, it's time, Graves. It's Christmas Eve. No more thinking and waiting. God brought this scattered family together this year. He started healing old hurts last year, and now he's giving you an opportunity to make a child's dream complete by his design for this family. Amelia walked into the kitchen to a nostalgic and familiar sight. Alex was making pancakes and talking to Angus, who was stuffing his face and laughing at the same time. She stood there, watching Alex at the stove, completely animated and smiling at her brother and urging him to have another pancake. You know, Mom and Aunt Mellie used to make me pancakes on Christmas Eve morning because we were going to be so busy getting last-minute stuff done before going to church service and coming back for supper. Angus grunted in agreement as he poured a copious amount of maple syrup, over the 2 large pancakes on his plate. "Hey, my turn," Amelia called as she joined Angus at the table. "Alex makes the best pancakes, better than Mandy or I ever did. Yum. Pass the syrup, Gussie," she said as Alex placed a small stack on her plate. The kitchen door opened, leading to the side entryway, and Rick stepped in. "Did somebody say pancakes?" he said, sniffing the air and glancing over at Alex at the griddle. "Oh, excellent. Just in time. Alex's pancakes. Been a long time, but I haven't forgotten." He joined Amelia and Angus as a larger stack was placed before him. "We have a fresh coating of snow that fell through the night. It's really cold out there, so make sure you bundle up," he said to the group. Angus was planning an epic snowball fight of the boys against the girls, and they were loading up with a big breakfast to keep their stamina during the battle. Finally, Alex sat down and began digging into her pancake breakfast with bacon, fried potatoes, eggs, juice, and coffee. She looked over at an empty dish and silverware at the table. "Hey, little brother, you put down one too many settings at the table. Did you notice?" Angus did not respond. He was so busy sharing his strategy with Rick that he didn't hear his sister. The family enjoyed their large Christmas Eve repast in preparation for the upcoming battle. Their Christmas Eve was full of activity following the epic snowball battle with the boys, winning by a narrow margin. Angus was beaming as he graciously accepted the trophy cup from Amelia, who announced that the battle was won because of good strategy and twice the number of snowballs at hand. Following a quick change, Rick drove Alex to the nearby shopping outlet to get gifts. He wanted to get her alone to show her the ring and tell her of his intentions to ask Amelia to marry him. Well, it's about time. Maybe now one of the Andrews sisters will actually get married, Alex said snarkily. "When were you planning to ask her?" "Before we leave for candlelight service," he said, his cheeks turning red, and not because it was cold outside. "Angus knows my plan already. I'll ask her to step away with me briefly. I only hope she says yes." Alex saw the look of worry come across his features. "Don't worry, Rick. She will say yes. I know it. She adores you, but she's kept all her feelings bottled up inside, trying to look all strong and responsible to everyone. She hasn't been fooling me and Angus, you know. We all love you, Rick, and I'm happy for you both," she assured him, patting his arm gently. Hours later, after the candlelight church service, Rick placed his arm around Amelia's shoulders as he escorted her, Alex, and Angus to his large truck, which was warming as they said, "Merry Christmas," to departing churchgoers, rapidly heading to their parked cars. Amelia was beaming with a large smile as the women of their community noticed the engagement ring sparkling on the finger of her left hand. After a few oohs and ahs, Rick and Amelia humbly thanked them and made their way from the church. Angus was anxious to get back home and tried not to be annoying after Alex warned him not to take their moment to shine away from them. "I know you want to get on with it, but remember, they stayed unmarried for years, thinking that's what we wanted. It's their time now, little brother." Angus agreed with his sister. What she didn't know was that he was bursting with joy over their news. He prayed that Rick would marry Aunt Mellie and that they would be a family. The night was cold and crisp outside, but the family sitting in front of the fireplace were warm in their pajamas while comfortably sipping their cocoa after a light Christmas Eve supper. Alex interrupted their quiet musings when she stood up and made a voice-clearing sound. "I want to tell you all that I'm very sorry that I stayed away and shut you out of my life these past few years. There's no excuse because you didn't do anything to hurt me personally. You were also experiencing the same hurt as I. The deaths of our parents were a shock to me, and I no longer felt the connection you always spoke about, Aunt Mellie. Something did break in me, but God healed me overnight into today. You all welcomed me back, but I didn't feel worthy of your welcome after what I did. I spoke to God last night and asked Him to forgive me, and He did. I woke up early with no more pain, only joy. I love you all, and I'm happy to be here to celebrate Christmas once again with my family." She sat down relieved by the smiles of forgiveness and acceptance that were turned in her direction. Amelia cleared her throat of the emotion of unshed tears and looked at her niece and nephew. "Rick witnessed my words to Angus last year, but I want to repeat them again for your benefit, Alex. I knew the exact time when my sister's life ended. Our bond, which formed in our mother's womb, was severed when her connection to this world ceased. I was devastated and retreated to the place where she once resided. It was unfair to you and Angus that I did this. Mandy would have been terribly disappointed in me for doing that to you. I asked Rick and Angus to forgive me for closing them for my life, and I ask you the same. I promise that I will never do that again, and you all will have my undivided attention going forward. We missed out on making memories together these past years, but we will make up for them going forward." She looked with heartfelt sincerity at each of them as each nodded their acceptance in return. Then it was Angus's turn to speak. "Thank you, Alex, for your words. You are my big sister, and I'm happy you're home with us." Then, turning to his aunt, "Auntie, I forgive you anything. You were the mother God gave me, and it looks like I'm getting a father too. Aunt Mellie asked me to tell the real story of Christmas the way she told it last year. Okay, here goes." He proceeded to tell the small group the story of the birth of Jesus, as told in the Gospel of Luke. They listened raptly to Angus as he narrated the events around the birth and the reaction of the shepherds upon hearing the glad tidings from the herald angels. When Angus sat down, he looked shyly at Rick and Amelia. Their faces were similar to Alex's. "You're a natural storyteller, Angus. That was very well done indeed," Rick said approvingly. "Wow, Angus, you sound like Linus in A Charlie Brown Christmas," Alex said, smiling broadly at her brother. Angus went to bed that night feeling warm and contented from things he'd never fully experienced before in his young life. Rick, who was sleeping in the guest bedroom next door to Angus, rounded the evening off with his reading from an old family copy of A Visit from St. Nicholas. Just as Clement C. Moore described in his famous poem, they went to settle their brains for a long winter's nap. Christmas morning was everything that she remembered. Amelia looked around at everyone as they opened their gifts. The sounds of laughter and excitement filled the air as Angus opened a gift from Alex. "Oh, wow, Alex!" he exclaimed as his sister grinned broadly, knowing that her brother, the adventurer, would love a telescope. Amelia watched Alex closely and saw the tears forming in her eyes over the joy she brought to her brother's face. The family enjoyed their time opening gifts to one another. After they cleared up the trash from opening the many presents, Rick and Angus began discussing the best place to put the telescope, which was very big and heavy. They agreed to build a shed with a retractable roof to observe the night sky. Amelia and Alex immediately started their preparation of the Christmas meal. They had baked the pies and cookies already, but Amelia wanted to cook certain dishes from her great-grandmother's favorite holiday recipes. Alex was all for that. Not to mention, she wanted this Christmas to be all the more memorable and special because of the engagement. The two women talked and laughed in perfect harmony with one another over time-honored, blue ribbon recipes prepared lovingly for a special meal. Alex, the prodigal, felt welcomed and right at home as her loving aunt brought back memories of her childhood and the time when her mother was with them in the kitchen cooking. Amelia did not change the subject or skirt around any questions or topics brought up by Alex. She responded openly and honestly with her niece. When Amelia looked at Alex, she saw a younger version of her sister. Alex looked so much like her mother and was similar in nature to Amanda that it made Amelia catch her breath at times. But she knew that her niece needed to talk about her mother, and Amelia was the best person to tell her everything she wanted to know. As walls of hurt and pain were dismantled, a new bond of familial love was formed with new possibilities of growing ever closer. In the place where Amelia and Amanda learned to cook and bake from their mother Grace and their father's mother Adele, Alex was learning the secrets of what made these women exceptional cooks through the generations. Amelia felt the responsibility of sharing these special recipes with another woman in the family who believed as she believed. The kitchen is where the heart of the family can be found. While Alex was arranging the garnish around the roast turkey on the platter, Angus was busy setting the table for the holiday supper. He carefully arranged and aligned each implement to perfection. Amelia and Rick brought out the Christmas meal to the buffet table, and after they were finished, they all gathered to a place at the table. Amelia told Alex that they served Christmas supper last year, and it was before this meal that Angus said he would like to set the table before any meals are eaten in the dining room. Thinking this strange, Alex looked around at the fine job her little brother did at setting the table for fine dining. Everything was neatly and carefully arranged according to etiquette. She looked next to her and saw that once again, Angus put an extra setting. Are we expecting someone else for supper? I see that there's another setting at the table. Rick and Amelia looked at Angus and smiled. Amelia motioned for him to explain why there was an extra setting. Well, you see, when I first started putting this extra setting, I was thinking about you. I always knew that you would come home, but I didn't know exactly when. So, I promised that I would always be ready for when you came. I wanted you to know that you were always expected and always welcome. And now that you've come, I still wanted to put up the extra setting, sort of like following what the Bible says about hospitality and entertaining angels and stuff. See, I believe that Jesus answered my prayer for you to return home. Months ago, I started having dreams about Mom telling me that you were coming home and to be ready to receive you. She didn't say when. She just said you were coming. He looked over at Amelia, who sat shocked at hearing this. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Aunt Mellie. I didn't want to upset you. Mom said it was to be kept secret. I just needed to believe it, so I did. Now, because Jesus answered my prayer, I promised him that I would feed his lambs and his sheep. So, I continued putting up a place at the table in case we entertain a stranger. Rick and Amelia marveled at the wisdom of such a young person and the kindness of his heart, and they wanted to share their good news with these two special kids. We want you both to know that we will be getting married right in the new year. We're not going to wait to have a big wedding or anything elaborate. We want you with us, Alex, before you head back to New York. So we asked the minister to come here with two of the deacons and their wives as witnesses. Your aunt and I will be married right there in the living room, Rick told them matter-of-factly. God has given us a blessing this Christmas with a lesson about the importance of family, forgiveness, and hospitality. I've always loved this family and the person who always drew me to your door. This is a Christmas I'll never forget. They thanked God with one voice for their blessings as the sounds of another Andrew's Christmas could be heard throughout the large clapboard house.
Thank you so much for joining me for this season finale of the In the Lighthouse Christmas story, A Place at the Table. I hope you enjoyed listening to this tale of redemption, reunion, and hospitality. Miracles have a way of happening when faith overrides reason because we surrender our control and trust God to change what has been broken. Faith will bring the prodigal home. Faith will heal the brokenhearted. Faith reminds us that Jesus has already set an eternal place for us at his Father's table, and our invitation will never be lost in the mail. If you want to continue hearing this content, please like this video and share it with your friends on social media. Do you or someone you know have a prodigal in the family? Are you hoping to reconnect with loved ones? Hope springs eternal. Trust God and take that first step toward reconciliation. As always, we welcome any comments and invite you to leave a message below. Transcripts for this and all episodes can be found in our show notes on our website. You can visit the Lighthouse on the web at www.carrythelightministries.com and click on the Our Ministries tab to see all our posted episodes. Before you leave, why not click on that subscribe button and the bell to notify you when our next episodes are uploaded. Please prayerfully consider regularly supporting Carry the Light Ministries as your heartfelt tithe offering. Your contributions will help us continue to bring thoughtful biblical truths to this platform. We trust God's will and purpose for the furtherance of His Great Commission. From our family to yours, may you enjoy a blessed Christmas and a new year filled with peace. I'm your lighthouse keeper, Daphne Collins, with Carry the Light Ministries. Until next year, be blessed.